Okay, it looks like does it seem like everybody's here? I'm sort of trying to watch. Looks like all the board members have been let into the meeting. Rosemary, are you waiting on anyone?
I don't think that. I think we're good.
Okay, then Happy New Year. It is January 11th, and this is a meeting for the Curriculum Committee. And I just want to welcome everyone back. It's nice to see so many faces here. We will call the meeting to order and start if there's any public comment on the agenda. Has any been received?
None received through email.
Okay, and it doesn't look like any of our attendees have their hand up. So with that, I will turn the meeting over to Mrs. Grigaitis and her team. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Petruno, and everybody, welcome. This evening, we're going to be sharing some district assessment data. Then we will highlight how our students are performing from an academic perspective. We are going to ask our guests to keep in mind a few things while listening to our presentation. We are only looking this evening at a few points of data. We have many in our district, but for the sake of brevity, we are only sharing a few. We also want to keep in mind that although it's very important for us to maintain the rigorous curriculum that we have always taught here in Colonial, regardless of a pandemic and our less than typical situation, we did find it necessary in some cases to adjust the pacing of certain units of study to better accommodate our learners and teachers. We had to consider professional development needs. We had to consider materials to be distributed for optimal instruction for our students. There are also many different types of assessments that we use for various reasons. Nancy, can you please switch to the next slide? Thank you. All data that is used by our teachers is used to inform their practices and future instructional purposes. Again, we are going to only share a few. Next slide, Mrs. Aiken. We're first going to look at some Linkit benchmark data across various grade levels. Benchmark data involves assessing our students on end of year standards. We will be focusing on benchmark A, but benchmark data typically is given 3 points in the year and helps us to measure the growth. Next slide, Nancy. Here, again, we are looking at both reading and math data across 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 8th grade. We are looking at benchmark A, which is beginning of the year. This is projecting how our students would do on end of the year standards on those given assessments. We have chosen to look at student average scores. So over the past 3 years, 18-19, 19-20, and this current school year of 2021, you are noticing slight increases and decreases at each grade level. We also wrote down at the bottom of there, the N count. The N count is important to look at for each of our counts in each cohort from 19 to 20. With an increased N count of students taking the assessment, the data can be more reliable. There are not as many outliers. So you will notice again that there are slight increases and decreases. We are all aware that there are always standard errors of measurement on any given assessment, meaning that the same group of students can take that assessment today and tomorrow, but score slightly differently. This could be due to more or less hungry in the students, or I'm going to come to school more or less tired today than I was yesterday, or simply given the fact that the students could guess on more or less items or questions. So looking at this data, giving those standard errors, we are confident that our students are performing as they have typically in the past. Nancy, could you go to the next slide? Here, we are looking at the cohort data, meaning the same students taking different assessments from year to year. So in reading and math again, look at that top line of data. We are looking at the second grade students that took benchmark A assessment beginning of the year in the school year of 1920 and comparing them to the same students' scores on benchmark A in third grade. The same with those students that took the benchmark A assessment in fourth grade, and then currently this year in fifth grade, seventh grade last year to eighth grade this year. Again, we are seeing slight increases and decreases across those cohorts. We wanted to look a little bit further to see, is this typical? So we look back another year to the school year 18-19 and compared that with school year 19-20. You will see again, slight increases and decreases. We do want to bring everybody's attention to the math. We do want to focus on second to third grade. We do an asterisk there. And we would like to note that benchmark Linkit assessments in general in the school year of 18-19 were a pilot, and only half of the amount of students took those assessments that given year. The pilot went well, and Linkit was given to all students in the school year of 19-20. Nancy, next slide. We gather more in-depth information from this data to help inform and refine our instructional practices. Our curriculum supervisors, Dr. Giovanisi and Mr. Merck, are going to share some more of that detailed information for you, regardless of our percentages. Dr. Giovanisi?
Hi, good evening. Yes, so I would like to just preface with just clarifying just the understanding of how we're reporting, and I'm speaking on behalf of both Ed and myself. So while we share this data, just please keep in mind that we are sharing here in accordance with reporting categories. So reporting categories you may see when your son and daughter receive their reports for PSSA. They're referred to as reporting categories for either reading or for mathematics. And they're basically just the categories by which we're measuring their growth and proficiency. On Linkit assessments as well. And again, as Rosemary stated, we're looking at Linkit A primarily tonight as our baseline. They also use reporting categories, but I will say in terms of reading and English language arts, most of them are represented on our Linkit assessment. However, we do use multiple assessments and multiple measures because, for example, you probably heard us talk in the past about TDA, text-dependent analysis. That's not something necessarily measured on a Linkit test, more of a multiple choice test. That's something that's a lengthier essay. So we would do a multiple measure, we'd do a different measure in order to see how students are doing on that particular item or reporting category multiple times a year. The other thing to keep in mind too, when we look at grade 3, grade 5, grade 8, though many of the reporting categories are similar from grade to grade, they're not all exactly the same, and they're also not necessarily weighted the same. So please keep that in mind as we're sharing. But our baseline at the onset of the year, based on Linkit A with regard to English language arts and reading in grade 3, showed us that on that baseline assessment, vocabulary acquisition and use, and also literary text for grade 3 were our top 2 strengths relative to the reporting categories. I will say the SIT teams or school improvement teams did a wonderful job last year, the time that we were together and present, really working towards that particular goal of really addressing that set of standards or that reporting category. So I will say that paid off, and by measuring that, we had some positive outcomes with it. This year, grade 3 is using a new resource that will complement those strengths, but also please keep in mind for grade 3, our focus areas are craft and structure as well as informational text. And I do think with some of our new core resources and some of our curricular supplements as well, I do think that with craft and structure and informational text, we are going to see a variety of texts, multiple perspectives. For example, one event based on many different perspectives or multiple versions of the same event. and also different versions of text structure that we are able to continually reinforce. So I think we're definitely on a great track with grade 3, but definitely proud of where our strengths lie based on what we were working on last year. For grade 5, our top 2 strengths were craft and structure, as well as literary text. And then as far as focus areas, we're looking at informational text and then key ideas and details. And at this point, truly in 5th grade, it does become more sophisticated, these concepts, and we're looking not just at one piece of text, but multiple texts to compare. And you may derive multiple main ideas, not just one, and then associating the details and the key points that help you to arrive at those main ideas. So it does become more sophisticated at that 5th grade level. So we continue to work on that. And finally, grade 8, our strengths there were key ideas and details and literary text. Hopefully at this point, you're starting to see a bit of a pattern at the onset of the year that literary text seems to be somewhat of a strength for our students in terms of a pattern. 8th grade is also utilizing a fairly new core resource this year that I think will also complement our strengths, but help us to address more and at least a variety of informational texts, because our focus areas are informational texts, and then also craft structure and integration of knowledge and ideas. This year in and of itself, part of that reporting category, or at least set of standards or topics, really has to do with a variety of texts. So I think this year, more than almost any other year, we have traditional text, but we do have such a plethora of digital texts and primary sources and different things that we are bringing in on a regular basis to provide various genres, experiences, authors, and also even the environment of our classroom, where we need different types of text to accommodate virtual learning, etc. In summary, as far as trends are concerned, you can see we have a nice, strong literary text pattern across the board, and we will continue to really work on informational text and making sure that our students become more and more comfortable with those features because they are a little bit more complex to master. We will continue to emphasize analysis. That is something we have been doing for the last 5 years, really stressing, even as early as 3rd grade, analysis and how important that is as an instructional focus. Again, as stated, a variety of texts. So it's not just, one core book that we do all together. It's short stories, it's poems, it's songs, it's infographics, all types of things that we now have students interpreting, generalizing, and really sifting through to make sure that they understand it. And then finally, maintaining those opportunities for students to discuss, infer, generalize, think, synthesize. Students will be asked to summarize, generalize, synthesize with any text that they're asked to use. So we will continue to provide those opportunities, whether it be virtual or face-to-face. Okay, Ed, how about Matt?
Oh, can I just ask a question, Katie? Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay.
I
so
can.
If you go back to that slide that you were just at, so as a parent of a 3rd or 5th or 8th grader, can you just in layman's terms kind of explain what parents can do at home with their kids to help with, say, literary text? Like, what does that mean? Like, how can I help my child? Or craft and structure, like, how can I help my child? Or, like, what does that exactly mean?
Yeah, I think very briefly, and I'm happy to post links and resources too, because there's a ton. But just in terms of your 3rd grade parent literary text, one thing that you can do is, number 1, read. Number 2, associate illustrations with the text. I think that's really important, because if we were to really unpack that, that's a piece of it, or a topic, or at least one of the standards that would be something that you would continue to do, is when you see this text, associating the pictures, associating illustrations, and it may be with a variety of different types of things that you're reading. So I would be happy to unpack these a little bit more, or post some resources under our parent resource pages for tips at home that we can certainly do by grade level. And I think another nice resource too on our curriculum pages is even some of the report card guides give you a good sense as across the year how some of these concepts really develop and progress. So I can definitely continue to add to that for you, and on behalf of our parents out there trying to support as well.
Thank you, Katie. So I'll take some time here just to talk about math. Just like ELA, not all reporting categories for each grade level are represented. Rather, these categories are what each of the benchmarks for these grade levels entail. And these categories, there's a correlation between showing growth in these categories versus overall performance for all categories in the grade level. And when you look at the strengths and the focus areas, you might be concerned. Just know that the benchmark A assessments measure all content for the entire year for these reporting categories. So as we move on to benchmark B and benchmark C, the other two benchmarks for the year, understand we're going to be looking for growth, especially in the focus areas, and maintaining our strengths as well. One other thing to note here and to emphasize is when you compare these strengths and focus areas for this past fall on the benchmark A, they are consistent with strengths and focus areas that we've had in the past years. And that's because, again, these grade levels still have to move through their curriculum. And, towards the end, that's where we look to see those focus areas become more strengths. But just like in ELA, when we look at our trends, our curriculum, our resources, and our teachers, they pride themselves on relating the concept to context, and that will continue to be an instructional focus. We always provide opportunities for students to problem solve. And then, lastly, just like they do in ELA, we try to correlate, those similar skills where students get to discuss, infer, generalize, think aloud, and synthesize the mathematical concepts for each grade level. Thank you, Nancy. Rosemary.
Yes, and thank you very much. Mrs. King from the high school is going to talk to us briefly about some data from PW in the area of algebra.
Hi, thank you. First, I want to definitely thank our department head, Jill Ruggiero. She is amazing in leading the department, working with me side by side with our school improvement team and pulling data all of the time. Just to preface this, there are a great deal of standards that are covered in each of our courses. Tonight, we're looking at our trigger courses, and due to the shift to virtual and then hybrid learning, we're giving unit tests instead of benchmarks this year. So in the past, it would be a cumulative midterm and final. This year, we are breaking it down and chunking it into unit assessments. So what we did, as a team, is we just looked at one of the many standards that was covered, and this is quadratics at three different levels. And we have the honors, the academic, and the modified. And what we do is we look at this data and then, we analyze it to see where our strengths and weaknesses are. So just to make a note, the modified courses, we touch upon data and then we revisit that as it's a year-long course. So if you go on to the next slide, as a team, school improvement, again, with Mr. Ruggiero and then our math instructional coach, Ms. Pincheski, we took a look at strengths and focus areas. And again, I like to note that, these are various standards that are covered throughout the courses. We spiral it through the curriculum, and those focus areas are covered. But again, due to the shift in learning from in-person to virtual to hybrid, these are focus areas that we will put back into the curriculum so that we make sure that not only are they covered, but the students are able to master them. Thank you.
And we have Mr. Ascona with us from PW. Thank you, Mrs. King. And he is going to share with us some biology data and information.
Hello, everyone. Similar to Mrs. King, I'd like to really thank Rich Coletta. He's done an amazing job in collecting data and working with myself in the science department, in addition to Maria Wilczek. So I'd like to share the results that we had were based off of 3 benchmarks. We were able to compare the same benchmarks between 2019-20 and 2021. just recently. So the results for the honors biology did not change much. In fact, it just decreased by 1 percentage point. And as far as the results for academic biology, we had a 5 percentage point change. I would equate that to the pandemic, but we did, the scoring was pretty consistent. So we are pretty satisfied, pretty happy with the results that we've had in biology. If you can move on to the next slide, Nancy, please. Our strengths, we had different strengths, interestingly enough, in honors bio and academic biology. So our strengths included in honors biology, enzymatic functions increased in scores, cell structure and function. In biology, thermoregulation and cellular functions increased. And areas of focus for honors biology, we saw some dips in chemical basis of life regarding pH, macromolecules present in certain organisms. We also saw a dip in both honors biology and bio and applications of energy transfer related to cellular respiration and photosynthesis, and in biology, enzymatic functions. So we have the ability to reteach these concepts because we do have a full year biology course. So we have the ability to go back and reteach.
Thank you very much, Mr. Escona. And Dr. Bacani is going to share with us some literature data.
Thank you, Mrs. Gorgaitis. I want to thank Kim May. She's a department chair for the English department, working hand in hand with her, with the school improvement team, as well as analyzing data for each benchmark assessment. What you can see here is a comparison with 3 of our courses at Plymouth White Marsh High School. 2 different groups. The 1920 fall assessment is the class of 2022, and the orange is the fall 2020-21 year is the class of 2023. And this is the first benchmark assessment given in the fall. One is a 10th grade honors English class. You can see not much of a difference between the percent proficient in the fall of 1920 compared to the fall of 2021. Slight dip for the English 3 group. Again, a different group. We're comparing between the 1920 and 2021 group. We understand the challenges that we have right now during the pandemic. However, looking at the data as part of our school improvement plan, as well as during professional learning time, take a look at areas of weakness of our students. English 3L is one of our self-contained special education courses, and hand in hand, 63% proficient compared to 65% proficient. So we're quite pleased with that for sure. Nancy, can you go to the next slide, please? Taking a look at areas of strength, and I'm going to pick one as per Mrs. May to share what she mentioned regarding citing strong and thorough text evidence. This is threaded throughout a lot of the units. Students demonstrated great strengths in identifying evidence and supporting analysis within texts. One focus area threaded throughout the academic courses as well as the honors courses is determining central idea of a text and its development over the course of a text. And professional learning teams meet during professional learning times on Fridays to review all of the data, particularly during our benchmark assessments. Next slide, Nance. So I'm going to shift over to advanced placement data for the last 5 years. And this is a trend analysis for the last 5 years in terms of total students taking an AP exam. And the 2017 year was the first year of the 5-block schedules. You saw an increase there, and then quite an increase as you get into 2020, as you can see here, with 362 total students enrolled in an AP course as of last year, the 2019-20 school year. And I'll get into the 21 school year in a second. The next slide, Mrs. Aiken, shows, which is a very popular one for a lot of people, is the average score per AP exam. Obviously, we know last year was a unique year in terms of completing the AP exams online. And our students give a kudos to our teachers and students for a terrific job in each of the areas. 23 out of the 25 areas, subject areas, our scores exceeded the state and national average, which is fantastic. 6 of the courses that you see listed here with highest in school history, which is, again, great kudos to our staff as well as our students. And then the next slide is a quick highlight to indicate this year we have 363 kids that are enrolled in AP courses. It's the most in PW history. Again, a lot of great work from our counselors, as well as we're doing right now for next year is taking a look at current courses for our students, taking a look at recommendations for the following school year, implementing our sophomore spotlight meetings, and taking a look at AP potential data. As I mentioned, 23 of our AP courses last year exceeded state and national averages. That's based upon a 5-year trend, and we do share with our department chairs as well as our AP teachers. Art history, AP Euro, Gov, Spanish language, French and statistics. Last year, highest score in AP history, so kudos to the teachers and students in those classes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bacani. Thank you, everyone, for sharing those. As you listened again, hopefully you noticed that, again, the academic data points, strengths, the areas of focuses moving forward remains consistent with our past data. We are looking forward to continuing what we are doing. We're confident that our fabulous teachers, their instructional practices, and our rigorous curriculum and targeted PD are the reasons for maintaining our academic successes. And again, our curriculum supervisors are going to talk very briefly about our professional support.
Okay, so the first point on there is foundations coaching. As many of you know, at this point, we do have foundations in K through 2 with the idea of by that 3rd grade grade level, we want to make sure that we are solidifying those basic skills as a foundation. So therefore, we have spread out our foundations coaching for grades 2, 1, 2, 1, and K across the year during the PLT times on Friday in order to provide additional support for teachers, whether that be a revisit or if it's their first year rolling that resource out. We want to make sure that they have some proper modeling, and there are a ton of digital resources now for the hybrid or virtual learners that we want to make sure that teachers can tap into to make their planning with some ease of use. So foundations coaching is something that we have implemented during that time that has gone very, very well with the support of Beth Napolitano, our point person from Foundations. We've also, across our K-5 reading specialist team, which is sort of a separate team that you don't necessarily hear of all of the time, but they're a wonderful team, pivotal team of experts, I would say. And we have started to work through zones of growth, which is a way in which you can look at sort of the rate of improvement when you take a look at those basic phonemic awareness type skills. And specifically, we use DIBELS as the assessment to really take a look at our student progress in K, 1, 2, and 3. But really the zones of growth professional development has helped our reading specialists to take a look at just another way of looking at specific students, groups of students, and or classes, meaning the 3rd grade class, 4th grade class, and how they are doing with regard to those specific skill sets. The final piece there is just ongoing content professional development. And so in the area of reading language arts, I have continued to be as conservative as possible with new items, but nonetheless, if we are trying to reinforce or unpack a current resource, our 3rd grade teachers have had some benchmark professional development. We've used RAS Kids for a while, but really making sure we're expanding the use of that. We've had RAS Kids professional development, specifically for hybrid learning and virtual learning. We've also done My Perspectives professional development, as noted earlier, with regard to 8th grade. And this would definitely take place in math as well as in science, et cetera, for areas that we may need to help and support for our core resources.
Thank you, Katie. I'll talk about the district content meetings next. In each of our subject areas, they have content meetings where they review goals and initiatives. For the secondary, for grades 6 through 8, they have separate meetings monthly, as well as 9 through 12. In the lower grades, K to 5, we have K to 3 committee meetings and 4-5 math committee meetings. And I know that in those meetings, we discuss rolling out new resources and utilizing initiatives such as using a progression of standards to remediate and enrich content. Also mentioned here in another bullet is our PLT time. And during that time, teachers get together in their PLT groups and review data for guided groups or assessment development. They look at best instructional practices for topics. And then one of the other things they will investigate is to learn and enhance new modes of instruction, especially during our current environment. That's a great time for where they're able to, expand themselves in how they can deliver our content. Thank you.
Mrs. Wilczek, are you going to talk about?
No, I was only going to speak to the content PD, but Katie already spoke to it. So I think we're good.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, could you please go to the next slide? Again, we did speak that we just touched on a few data points for you. You're looking at a slide that shows you the data sources for our school year. You're looking at the student achievement data. The highlighted areas are just the ones that we focused on and the tools that we use to look at those. Schools also review different forms of data to gauge how and who to support in our community of learners. We review teacher observations, discipline referrals, attendance data, student support data, and we go over thoroughly the social and emotional needs of our students. And as we all know, data is useless unless we do something with it. We have a wealth of supports in our district to help with addressing the needs of our students, both academically and socially and emotionally. We have continued with our supports that have proven to be successful in the past, but we have had to add some to help with the learning environment that we are in this current year. Nancy, if you could please go to the next slide. We have some assistant principals and some principals that are going to talk about some of those school-based supports that we are using this current school year. I'm going to first introduce Mrs. Udovich, the assistant principal of Plymouth Elementary, and she's going to begin sharing about some of these supports at the elementary level. Mrs. Udovich?
Good evening, everyone. Nancy, you can go to the next slide, please. So as Mrs. Grigaitis said, I'll be sharing with you just two of the supports that we use at the elementary level. As you can see, there are many others. So the first that I'm going to talk about is small group guided instruction. During small group guided instruction, teachers, reading specialists, and or interventionists work with small groups of students during reading and math blocks and are able to target specific skills in which students may need extra support or enrichment. These guided learning groups are flexible and will change often based on the needs of students and skills being taught in the core curriculum. Teachers use data to identify specific skills that are areas of need and enrichment for these groups of students. While teachers are working with their small groups on these skills, the remaining students in the classroom are working on activities that target specific areas of the curriculum that they may need to practice or that need to be enriched. Students rotate through different activities, including the teacher group. The next area of support is our social and emotional support. And our social and emotional support is provided in a variety of ways at the elementary level. Some of the ways that we provide social and emotional support to our students is through guidance lessons, focusing on kindness, participation in the Great Kindness Challenge, health and wellness lessons focused on peace, mindfulness, and also acknowledging our feelings at different times. Social groups are also facilitated by our school counselors. Next, Mrs. Dreisen is going to share with you.
Good evening. One of my greatest pleasures in being a principal is inspiring the love of teaching and being a principal. Imagine having a former student starting in kindergarten at White Marsh, then first grade, second grade, and third grade, requesting a Zoom meeting with me and telling me that as long as she can remember, she wanted to be a teacher and not only a teacher, but a teacher specializing in reading. And this student is Devin Morgenstein from PW High School. Devin is an honors English student at PW High School. Thank you to Dr. Bacani and his team. And it's a very special thank you to Mr. Brian Weiner, who is the teacher. And what they started at PW High School was what's known as the 20% project. And Devin called me and spoke to me about the 20% project. And the objective of the project is to spend 20% of the course independently exploring, learning, and creating something that intrigued her. So she contacted Rachel Milio, the reading specialist at Waitmarsh, and asked if we could all have a Zoom meeting. So Mrs. Milio, myself, Devin, and Mr. Weiner all met to come up with a special project where Devin could use her love of what she wants to become as a teacher. So in working it out through a Zoom meeting, we thought of what a great way for Devin to get involved with elementary students than to tutor. But she isn't a certified teacher. She's really had no experience teaching. So I needed to have a teacher along with her. And in every year up till this year at Waitmarsh Elementary School, we had Get Up and Go, which is our tutoring program in the morning for third graders. So we decided to start a new tutoring program called Get Out and Go. And what Devin did alongside with Mrs. Zaper, who is an instructional aid certified teacher at Waitmarsh, is they worked on, with Mrs. Miller and myself, an after school program that takes place twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, for an hour from 4:30 to 5:30. And how we chose the students, it's how we did our Get Up and Go program in the morning, is we looked closely at our data, and we looked at the children who were just below proficiency, right on that proficiency, and a little bit above the proficiency. We came up with 20 students. We sent out a permission for them to attend the after school program. And out of the 20, we received 10 students. So they decided, Terry and Devin, to concentrate on comprehension. That is a need at Waitmarsh Elementary School with these students. So Terry started off the lesson with the instructional skills, and Devin took every single story and created a Kahoot, which is an interactive game created for each comprehension story. The children absolutely loved it. They couldn't wait to get on for their tutoring program, and the parents were watching as well. It caused a lot of excitement. It started in December, the beginning of December, and ended last week. So it happened right before conference time, and every parent that the child that attended the after school program commented to the regular education teacher what a great time their children are having, how much they're learning. And the good things about it is that they started feeling confident about themselves. They were all, reading on their appropriate levels, and they were sending positive messages to one another on the Zoom link. They could put in a question privately to Mrs. Zaper or Mrs. Zaper and Devin in the chat room if they have any questions. It was really a lot of positive comments. But it reminded me a lot of, it's so nice when you have a high school student form a relationship with elementary students. It's that partnership that really matters. Again, a huge thank you to Dr. Bacani and the administrative team, and also to Brian Weiner. But a very special thank you to Devin Morgenstein. And these are the students that when they start with you in kindergarten and they end up as a senior, to do these wonderful projects. It's really amazing. And the great thing about this project is, there are some good things coming out of the pandemic, is that from now on, hopefully we'll continue to have this Get Out and Go tutoring program in the afternoon and early evening. So again, thank you to the PW partnership with an elementary school.
Thank you, Mrs. Dreisen. And last but not least, Mrs. Rock is going to share about another partnership with PW.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. Mrs. Dryden's always hard to follow, so we'll try to give it a go. So when I think back and look at the really bright spot, one of the bright spots is PW Pals. In the fall of this past year, Heather King and Jesse Mancuso reached out to me about a partnership with the high school and high school students to provide support for students and families after school and in the evenings. Many bright high school students were matched with our students. We did a few surveys. Heather and Jess did one, and I did one myself. And these students provide homework help, tutoring, organization, just a friendly smile. Many of the parents say, I don't know why they don't talk to me like that. They seem to really engage the students. These sessions last approximately 30 to 45 minutes, 2 times a week. And I have to say, the students here at CES, the high school students and the high school, the families have said nothing but great things about this program. So I just really want to thank Heather King and Jesse, because I know it wasn't hard and it's a lot of work that you guys did to provide this partnership. We are currently serving over 45 students here at CES, and it's one of the most positive things that I've had seen come out of this pandemic. So I really, really appreciate it. And so do the students.
Thank you very much. Nancy, if you could please go to the next slide. And I would like to introduce Assistant Principal Tara Collis to talk about some secondary supports briefly.
Good evening. This slide contains a snapshot of various strategies our school improvement team has identified as important for the success of our students. Tonight, I'd like to highlight 2. First, we continue the use of the high impact instructional strategies that have been successful in our plan for a few years. The incorporation of the John Collins retrieval routine, added writing strategies, and differentiated instructional strategies. We also continue to use strategies that have been professional development areas of focus within the district, formative assessment, cooperative learning models such as Kagan, and questioning strategies. We regularly use accommodations and interventions where necessary for all of our students. We adjust workloads and assessments for students based on their level of need, and the goal is to grow our students incrementally and in leaps and bounds wherever we can. Another powerful support we put in place this year addresses the social and emotional needs of our students by providing learning opportunities through their shared grade level informational course on Canvas every Friday during our asynchronous afternoons. There are interactive lessons available and a live community counselor session every Friday from 1 p.m. till 2 p.m. The community counselors also provide supports throughout the week. They have available calendars for students to schedule meetings independently if needed. They work with the teams to provide extra supports and suggestions, and they even reach out to families regularly just to talk and listen to their concerns.
Thank you, Ms. Collis. And Mrs. King from the high school again is going to talk about some supports at PW.
Hi, thank you. We do have a lot of the same supports that the middle school has. Just to express a couple that are specific to the high school, though, we do have lunchtime and after school support run by a lot of our teachers and departments. But we instituted with the hybrid and virtual schedule, instructional aides are providing support in the afternoon on Fridays. And we have also enlisted the help of our NHS students, and they are being paired with some of our 9th grade students to help them get back on track with their studies. Again, just piggybacking on what Ms. Collis said, the counselors and community counselors are really going above and beyond, making themselves available. And we have increased the amount of time our care teams meet to include twice a week, and we just talk about students that are struggling for one reason or another. And we have a lot of supports in place that we utilize during that time to help students in whichever areas that they are struggling. So we have a lot of great supports and great staff at the building who are working very hard to support the needs of our students. So thank you for letting us highlight those.
That's terrific. Nancy, if you could please go to the next slide. And we would like to just thank everyone for attending this evening. We hope that you continue to feel confident that we have been meeting the needs of all of our learners and will continue to do so. In the next few weeks, we'll continue to assess, begin the process all over again of analyzing revising our practices based on that data, assigning more supports to students that need them, and we'll monitor that progress. I would also like to thank our curriculum team for putting this presentation together, as well as all of our administrators for gathering up your data, your input, and presenting this evening. Have a great evening, everyone. Back to you, Mrs. Petruno.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody for presenting all of that. It's really nice to see that, you know, despite the different learning situations that are going on this year, that, you know, we really are, the data really is showing that we're performing and the students are doing what they need to do. And that's in huge part because of all of you and obviously your teachers. Board discussion before we go to any public comment? Is there anybody with questions?
I'd like to chime in real quick if it's okay. That was amazing. You guys are all so busy doing the day-to-day work that you do, but to put all of that information together and explain things so thoroughly for all of us and for the public to see and understand, I think is so valuable. As parents and community members, we're so worried about the COVID slip, right? We're so worried, not just academically, but for the social and emotional wellness of our students. And you touched on all of those things. So kudos to all of you for that. And my favorite part was, I think every single person who spoke called out somebody else who helped them with what they were doing. So it's just passing it down the line and obviously showing and demonstrating that there's so much teamwork going on, that it's never just one person, it's just everybody working together. And it really, thank you from me, my family, from all of us for all of your hard work. I know we say thank you a lot, like thanks, but no, really, that was really great to see. And I loved hearing Ms. Dreisen's story of, you know, seeing things really go full circle as well. So thank you.
Anyone else? Otherwise, we will go to, are there any public comments? I don't see any. Drew, did you get any emailed in?
We did not receive any emails to public comment.
Okay, then I will close this meeting, and I believe we're staying right here for our next meeting. Do we want to take a 2-minute break? Dr. Christian, what's your preference?
I'm fine, whatever the board's pleasure. Mrs. Peduzzi, you're the chair of the next committee.
Oh, Kathy, you're muted there.
Darn it. I would like to continue on unless anybody would like to take a break.
Can we take like a 1-2 minute quick break? All right. Thank you.
Sure can.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for all your participation tonight. I appreciate it.
We'll start the meeting at 6:52. It's 6:49. So I'd like to call the Community Relations, Student Life, Safety and Wellness meeting to order. We have 6 items on the agenda tonight. And before we get started, do we have any public comment? Drew or Dr. Christian?
Mrs. Peduzzi, if you wouldn't mind, we did receive a multitude of emails this weekend. Could I make a reference to those emails and offer a statement for our community?
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Great. So welcome back. Happy New Year to everybody in our community. I hope hope everyone is safe as we continue through this challenging year as we deal with the pandemic. And let's hope that 2021 brings multiple safe opportunities for our students to learn and grow. That said, I need to update our community, and we did receive a variety of emails this weekend, but also over the break, some in support of our current model, some asking for us to go all virtual, and some asking us to provide 4 or 5 days of in-person learning. So the requests are many and they are varied. We certainly appreciate our community's patience as we work through this challenging time. This is being recorded, and I will be sending out a statement in the morning to all of our families It looks like we have about 47 participants tonight. So there'll be a follow-up email to our entire community tomorrow. But an important statement as we move forward. Our Colonial's most recent COVID-19 data indicates that we have an 11% positivity rate and an incident rate of 305 cases per 100,000 people. Colonial's been in the substantial range of transmission since the Thanksgiving timeframe. The Pennsylvania Department of Education and the Pennsylvania Department of Health updated guidance recommends that districts in the substantial range offer a hybrid or blended model, which allows for 6 feet of social distancing in its elementary schools, and a virtual model for middle and high schools. Obviously, we are offering a hybrid model in our middle and high school, and we've submitted an attestation form, which allows us to provide that model at CMS and PW. We've been providing hybrid learning since October, and our teachers have done an excellent job delivering education to students both in person and remotely while keeping our students safe. I certainly understand the desire as a parent and as an educator for increased in-person learning. However, that must be balanced with our need to emphasize safety, particularly during the winter months, as we are clearly seeing a spike in COVID cases, not only in our community, but throughout the Commonwealth. The Department of Health and PDE, as well as leading health officials, stress the importance of a robust mitigation efforts, including 6 feet social distancing, and I recommend that the board continue to follow this guidance. On a daily basis, we track positive cases in cooperation with the County Office of Public Health. Our dashboard on our website includes over 50 positive cases, but we've had hundreds of students and employees quarantined due to possible contact over the past several months. And I think our mitigation efforts of providing that 6 feet social distancing and smaller class sizes, in addition to the required mask wearing, has helped limit the spread within the school. Tomorrow, we will be distributing a questionnaire to families as we plan for the upcoming months. I'm going to ask each family to complete a separate questionnaire for each of your children. For planning purposes, we're looking at the next window to be a 2-month period from February 1st until April 2nd, which is the end of spring break. We're asking families commit to the virtual or hybrid model during that time period. And you're going to hear me say it multiple times, February 1st to April 2nd. The remainder of January will continue in our current model. If your child currently participates in remote learning, your child will be able to participate in our hybrid model as we promised this past fall. You will be asked in the questionnaire if you would like to change your child to the hybrid learning or remain in the remote model. If your child currently participates in the hybrid learning model, you'll be asked if you wish your child to remain in hybrid learning or change to fully remote for the period of February 1 to April 2nd. All families that select remote learning for this period, February 1 to April 2nd, will have the opportunity to request in-person learning for the final months of school. I am hopeful that we'll be able to offer more than 2 days per week in those final months. We would like to see a commitment to your selection from February 1 to April 2nd, because the reality is around the holidays, we have seen lower attendance, particularly at the high school and middle school. Since December, that's been the case, mostly at PW, but also at CMS. Our elementary attendance has been strong. Once again, please know that if your family selects virtual from February 1 to April 2nd, you'll have the opportunity to request in-person learning for the final months of school. We want that increased opportunity to take place. We're hopeful because of the vaccination efforts and hopefully warmer temperatures to come that we mitigate the spread of COVID. And we want to keep our students, our families, and our staff safe. I understand this may be frustrating for some folks to hear, but I feel it's a recommendation we must pursue. Safe and effective vaccines are coming, and we're hopeful that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Certainly appreciate everybody's patience. And I wanted to issue that statement before public comment tonight because of the number of emails we've received with a variety of requests over the past few weeks. Thank you.
Dr. Christian?
Yes.
Okay. So that was very good and very succinct. Is what you said just now going to go out with the survey?
It is. It will not be quite as lengthy as that, but it will be a version of that. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So do we have any public comments to read or anybody in the queue? Drew or
I have
Dr.
not received any emails, and we have 30 attendees and no one has their hand raised.
Okay. And emails, the only way an email would be public comment is if they requested it to be read as public comment, right? Okay.
Well,
Correct.
many of the emails were similar, and so I thought that was the best way to, rather than read them all, I thought that was the best way to address it.
Absolutely. Okay, so our first item on the agenda is updated COVID-19 school exclusion guidelines. I don't believe there's any attachments to look at or anything like that. Dr. Christian, you just spoke about some stuff. Is there anything else you want to expand upon?
Mrs. Burke, can you assist with this one? We do have, I apologize, we do have it up on our website, the revised school exclusion guidelines. And I just want to say our school nurses have been on top of this. I see Jen Sexton in the room here. They have been communicating along with our principals to our families as the guidance continually changes. I think Drew is pulling it up right now. Karen, did you want to comment on that?
Just that, and certainly Jen, chime in if I say something that is incorrect. We do follow the Montgomery County Office of Public Health school exclusion guidelines for COVID when any of our students or staff have been exposed or have contracted COVID-19, and that does change periodically. So it's important that the community at large know that we don't just pull out numbers from the air, that if the school nurse does contact you upon learning of an illness in your family or in response to your reporting that there's an illness, that the number of days that your student would be asked to stay home is coming from the guidance that we do receive. Jen, did you want to add anything to that?
No, the guidance does change, so that's the key. So the one we're using at this point is the revision date of December 18th. So as things come down from CDC, Pennsylvania State Department of Health down to Montgomery County, then we update what we're using and guiding families for. But it is complex, and it looks like a concise little grid to follow, but boy, there's a lot of gray areas when we get working with each individual case. And we, as a group, the nurses work together because obviously we have families that have students in multiple buildings. So we're in close contact with each other. We're in close contact with the administrators in our buildings, and then also in close contact with the Montgomery County Health Department or Office of Public Health. And we kind of have the bat phone to call them and get their guidance, which is huge because, there's even times we will ask them questions that they say, you know what, we have 4 of us here in the room, we're going to chat about it and we'll get right back to you, because there's not a clear cut black and white to every scenario. We kind of got to work it through. The group of nurses is so thankful to the families for being open with us and patient with us, because we kind of do feel like we're invading your space and picking up the phone to say that, we heard that your grandmom has COVID and she was over last weekend, and, and we're telling our teachers, our staff, faculty, if you hear something, just tell us. We'll follow up on it. We'll be the inspectors to figure it out. So they kind of get it off their shoulders. They know that they're doing their part, which we're asking them to do, and we're investigating all the cases. So we really appreciate our community, our families working with us and kind of sharing those details and dates and what symptoms dad had and mom had and when it all started, because it is quite a puzzle to put together and come up with the right answer for when the students can return to school.
It is a rather complex chart, and this does not do it justice. And I apologize, I'll get it in board docs, but it is available on the Montgomery County website. What's really important to understand is with the new guidance, I think it's well intended, but it does create, depending upon the nuance of each case, it can create for a different response to families. It's possible that you could be excluded for 10 days. It's possible that you could be excluded for only 7. It could be up as much as 14. And in some cases, depending upon the close contact or household contact, it could be in excess of 20 days. And so I think Jen said it really well when she said, we're not trying to invade, we're trying to protect. And so we have to ask direct questions. And the families have been great. And so we do our best to try to create the minimal number of days somebody needs to be quarantined, because we know kids want to be in school. But that said, we need to ask those probing questions to make sure we're keeping everybody safe. So I'll get it out to the board. You can get lost in the weeds on it very quickly. But Karen and the nurses have gotten together. They sit with the principals, and we do our best to be consistent in each of our buildings. But because every case has a nuance, you know, it does present some challenges.
If I might, and just give some kudos and shout outs to our school nurses who really have been doing an outstanding job. They worked through the break. They work on weekends. They are very, very busy making sure that your students and their teachers and the staff in general are safe. And that's really what it's about right now. We want everybody to be safe. So we thank you greatly for all of your support, and also with keeping those lines of communication open. The role of the school nurse has certainly changed over the last year. Jen, is there anything you want to add as to what looks different these days from what it did before?
It all looks so different. As much as the kids miss being in the school, we miss our kids. I miss, you know, having those interactions with the kids. You know, they might come in for something simple, a Band-Aid, you know, something they forgot from home that they need. But the conversations we have and just getting to know the kids, that's what I'm missing. I feel like I don't know my freshmen this year. You know, I'm sure everyone feels that same way, the new students coming into the building. So it's definitely different. The numbers of kids we're seeing for illness and injury, where our offices would be hopping in the past, it's definitely decreased. We've changed the way that we have kids even present to the nurse's office, because we want to control the flow and be able to follow all the, you know, social distancing and limit the numbers in one space. So we're really seeing a limited number of like the routine visits, sick visits, injuries. And then of course we have a very low threshold for sending home. And I think that would be a point that I would like to put back out to the community, that when we see symptoms, we have to err on the side of caution and send home. And we have to then follow this chart, which says if they've had these symptoms, then we either need the doctor to tell us that it's a different diagnosis before they can come back when their symptoms resolve. We need a COVID test that says they're negative and their symptoms resolve. So we would encourage as a group of nurses that if you're in doubt and your student is complaining of anything in the morning, keep them home. Because it's so much easier to keep them home. And if they're feeling better the next day, you haven't kind of entered this wheel of you have to present doctor's notes and COVID tests. And, you know, it can save you some grief keeping them home just on the safe side with some symptoms in the morning. So that's why we ask you to kind of run down that, you know, is your child feeling well? Any fevers? Any questionable exposures? We're all in the community, we're getting restless and we want to get out and do things, but I happen to work part-time at Patient First as well. Sorry if I'm not allowed to say the name, but I see it's our community that I'm seeing, and the numbers of positives are insane. So I can tell you that as a district, we are doing an amazing job with our mitigation efforts because we're not seeing all the transmission in our buildings. We're following the rules and we're doing it a great job. But it's out there and we're so close. As of tomorrow afternoon, all the school nurses will have received their first immunization. So we can taste it. There's the end is coming. But we just got to keep going with our efforts and we will get back to some sort of normal, but we just have to be patient. It's close. I know we're coming up on a year of this, but we have to continue our efforts and stay safe because it's out there and nobody can predict who's going to have it and not even know it and who's going to unfortunately pass from it. That's the scary part of this illness. So we have to protect ourselves and protect everyone around us. So.
Thank you.
Jen, can I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
You and the other nurses for all that you're doing. I'm just curious what, from your perspective, how is the availability of COVID testing and the speed with which people are able to get results back?
In our community, there's a lot of options. The county is offering Monday through Friday testing at 6 different sites. And I think now they've just opened up certain sites will have like alternating Saturday availability. So that's a big option. And they are doing what we would consider the more accurate PCR testing, looking for the genetic material of the virus. And they're turning around their results pretty quick, 24, 36 hours. There's these other pop-up spots, the 15 to know, I know is one that a lot of our community members are using. That's the rapid antigen test. I believe there's an out-of-pocket expense with that, but I know some of our kids are going through CHOP, their CHOP provider, and they have a pretty quick turnaround. So, and even like I said, the facility I work at, they offer rapid and the PCR testing. So, I feel like we can get tested. I don't feel like where in the beginning it was difficult to be tested or you had to hit a certain criteria. Depending on if you're symptomatic or not, that might determine whether you're getting the rapid or the PCR, but the tests are available, I would say widely available.
So public service announcement to all of our community members. The testing is free in Montgomery County. So if you go on their website to their COVID place, I've had many people reach out to me because I've gotten tested a couple of times. Where did you go again? Like, you don't need to call your doctor. It's free. You can go online and sign up. You can actually schedule it online. If you don't want to do it that way, you can call. And you don't need a reason. One time my reason was because I traveled out of state. The next time was because I was curious. That's all. And so you're not doing anything illegal. You're not doing anything bad. If you just want to ensure that you're okay, or if you have any symptoms, obviously, make use of that. Your tax dollars are paying that. So go get your test if you want tested.
And I will just tack on to that. They do collect your insurance information when you sign up for the county testing. But I think they'll try to collect from insurance, maybe the actual test process or something, but there's no cost to the patient.
I just want to say thank you to Jennifer and to all of the school nurses that are definitely right in the line of fire. So thank you for all you guys do.
Thank you.
Anything else with the school exclusion guidelines? Any other questions from board members? Okay. School nurse updates. I guess that was any other.
Sorry.
Perfect. It's rolled right in. Okay, so now on to the instructional delivery update. We talked about this a little bit already. Is there something else that you want to discuss, Dr. Christian?
No, I made my statement and I can answer any questions on the board, or certainly we'll be issuing, sending out an email blast. It'll be coming from, it'll be a letter from me with the survey or the questionnaire for our virtual and our hybrid families. And it will be coming from your principal. The letter will be signed by me, but the principals have their emails set up and they have all the families that are registered for virtual right now and all the families registered for hybrid. So it'll be two distinct email blasts.
So my request, and would love to get everybody's obviously feedback. I would like to add an option. Again, this is a questionnaire. This isn't a families are making their ultimate choice. I would like to also allow people to choose or suggest 5 days a week, just so that we can get a feel for what our community wants. The vast majority of emails that we have gotten, it is a vast majority, are pushing for 5 days. Now, of course, the vast majority would be for the 5 days because that's a change from what we have. So that's not saying that the majority of our district wants the 5 days. I'm just saying that those are the emails we've gotten. So I just think it would be useful for us to then be able to have the numbers of, you know, this many families are committed to doing fully remote for the next 2 months. This amount of families would be committed to being in person as much as they can. You know, whether we say 4 or 5 days or whatever that is, but just wanted to throw that out there and get everybody's thoughts.
So how would you phrase that so that, because, you know, I may say, yeah, I'll take the 2 days. I would say, you know, my child 2 days a week, and I would send 5 days a week if it were an option. So I think you have to phrase it. I don't have a problem with it, but I think you have to phrase it in a way, because otherwise, you know, you could have people that are like, I'm okay with my kid 2 days a week, but if it's 5 days a week, I'm not interested. And there has to be one heck of a big bolded thing up there that says, if we can't do this because of social, like, I don't know how we get everybody in 5 days a week with social distancing requirements. I just don't.
Think we're gonna have more.
I don't know how you do that. Maybe in the elementary school. I don't know how you do that in the high school and the middle school with the changing of classes, et cetera. So I don't want to overburden the admin. I hear you, Kath, and I'm not opposed, but I don't want to overburden everybody with something that we just can't possibly do based on the restrictions. And, you know, Dr. Christian is saying 1 step at a time, February to April. Hopefully in April, you know, with all the vaccines and everything else, maybe there's another one. I don't want to set parents up for false expectations, and I don't want to overburden the administration with something that we can't possibly do.
I don't think asking is committing to being able to do it, but
I want to be really clear.
Right.
I don't want a parent saying, I signed up for 5 days and you're not giving it to me.
Right.
This is a questionnaire. Dr. Christian has stated that this is just a questionnaire. So it's not a decision.
No.
But a parent was
it has to
being
be
asked to commit
bold
and say
and-
what they were committing to.
Yeah, not for this one. He has, at least that's my understanding, right, Dr. Christian, that this is not the commitment, or is this the commitment?
Our recommendation is to ask families to commit either to all virtual or to hybrid from February 1st to April 2nd. Unless there is a large number of families that were to change to all virtual, I don't anticipate having the additional space as long as we are adhering to 6-foot social distancing. And I think asking the question for all 5, as much as I know there are some people who want it, and as a parent, I want it for my own son who's not, you know, I'll leave him out of it. But that said, I don't want to create the expectation. And I think whether you call it a survey, a questionnaire, a commitment form, we can use a variety of terms. Our recommendation is hybrid and virtual.
Can I ask that when we get the survey results back, if it seems that there's a much smaller number of students at the high school from February to April, that we consider adding a 5-day or 4-day option?
If we find ourselves with extra space due to an overwhelming commitment to virtual because of the increased COVID cases and people wanting to stay virtual, we certainly can investigate that.
Thank you.
Okay, then I'm good. Then I'm good with that. And I would rather, my personal opinion is do the survey as Dr. Christian suggested. And if we see there's a huge, a big jump in virtual, and we think, as long as we have the commitment that they can go back and look at it, if there's a high virtual, then I would be better off with that. I'm very nervous about setting false expectations.
It really feels as if we need to call this either a commitment form or a choice form for this date to that date, so that it's absolutely clear to everyone that this is what I am asking for my child, and the options that are actually available are what is on that form for a parent guardian to choose.
So Mike, when we talked the other day, I thought we said it was going to be a feeling them out, that we weren't going to do like we had done previously, that we were going to literally survey them and get their thoughts before we asked them to make a choice. Did I misunderstand our conversation?
That's not my interpretation of our conversation.
Okay. All right. So my thought was we were seeing what people would want to see what our numbers were.
Not a fault. It's an awful situation that we're in.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, certainly, I appreciate your opinion and your desire to get kids in. I think the board wants to investigate that. I think the ultimate, when we look at, I think we have to start with the mitigation effort. And if the board agrees that the social distancing is critical, then that's where we start. And then you have to look at your physical plant and your physical schools of what you're able to do. So that, to me is where we start. But no, I mean, we had a good conversation, and I just think this is where we are.
Isn't social distancing required? What do you mean if the board determines it's critical?
Well, it's required, but I mean, there are districts out there that are going 4 and 5 days a week, and there are districts there that are all virtual. They're not coming in. If you look at the PDE guidance, it says 6-foot distancing. It was just updated on.
So we're not.
No, it doesn't say that anymore. It says 6-foot distancing. January 7th, they issued.
Are we required by law to do 6-foot distancing or not?
It's guidance from
It's
Department of Health. Yep.
I have only seen, and I've read everything. I read too much. You guys got all my emails. From what I've read, it all says 6 feet to the maximum extent feasible, quote unquote. I wrote it down. So that's what I've read on the Department of Department of Health and the PED. That's what it says, and that's why a lot of the private and Catholic schools are able to do it, because they can't go bigger than that. And the new guidelines now say that if we are at substantial, that elementary schools are okay to go in and go into the building. So that's pretty much saying that it's more valuable to have our students in the building at less than 6 feet sometimes, because the benefits of the in-person education outweighs the dangers of, so that's what PDE and Department of Health have said.
Actually,
the chart actually says, if you're in substantial, you're recommended to be all virtual for secondary school, and you're recommended to be blended or hybrid for elementary school. That's what the chart says.
It says blended or hybrid, not any full-time.
No, but there are districts that are doing the attestation form and doing it differently. But the chart you referenced, that's what it says.
Okay, yeah, that's what it says. So we can send in our elementary schools. It's more lenient with the elementary schools than it is with the secondary schools, is what my point is.
But are you saying
only if we didn't adhere to the 6 feet distancing, which I think when we've all talked before, that was sort of where we were, that we were following the 6 feet distancing guidelines, which are put out by just about everyone as what is safest for kids and for staff. So I think to compromise on safety of our students and our staff, is something that I'm glad our students are in hybrid, and I'm glad that we're able to have our high school and middle school kids in hybrid. But I think to start compromising on that, especially right now in the height of these cases, is a lot. And
But
maybe
what Kathy, what you're referencing would say, and I'm sorry, tell me. So what I hear you saying is that guidance says you can put the elementary kids in, but then you would we have to then send the 6 through 8 and high schoolers virtual? It sounds like that's conflicting.
Well, I think the point for some of those was that some of those classes could then go into other buildings to spread them out more, but I know that's a staffing issue, so we don't have the staff to do that. But I don't know, this is my gut, is the reason they're pushing for the elementary, because it's more important for the elementary. Again, it's the weighing of the social, emotional, mental health and the percentage of getting sick. And also with the younger ages, I guess it's spreading less. So,
Okay. All right. Okay.
So that's all.
I'm going to say one of the big concerns right now are these new variants, which are even more contagious. So we don't have any experience. No one has any experience in elementary schools with this new, more highly contagious form of the disease. And one of my concerns is now our school nurses are in line to get their first dose of vaccine. You don't have your full immunity till you have your second dose of vaccine, which could be 3 or 4 weeks, depending on what they're going to receive. And our teachers are not in line yet to get vaccine. And I think it's vital that our staff have protection. That's how classrooms operate, when your staff will be protected.
Yeah,
Can I ask?
They're next. They're the next. They're one.
They're after the nurses. Mike, do you have any idea when that's going to be?
I'm sorry, I heard a couple people talking. Could you repeat the
Sorry,
question?
when are teachers, what's the timeline for teachers getting the vaccine?
Excellent question. So we met with county officials last week, and these are all estimates, but there was an article in the Philadelphia Inquirer last Friday. They are hoping to start Group 1B, which educators are part of, along with our police force, our firefighters, folks that are 75 years of age and older, grocery store employees. It's a fairly large group. They're hoping to start that at the end of January. It is, without getting into too much detail, it is all predicated upon the delivery of the doses. They've set up at Montgomery County Community College Bluebell campus, and they've got a very efficient process over there. It does require that once you are administered the vaccine to be observed for 15 minutes. So there's a lag without a doubt, but they're hopeful for the end of January for Group 1B. There will be within 1B, I'm sure they will have to prioritize tiers of people, and I would not proffer who should be prioritized over everyone. We know everyone needs it. So there'll be a range, but they're hoping to get anywhere from, I believe, 1,200 to 1,300 people through there a day. I do want to give, I think I cut off Mrs. Petruno and Mr. Shupak. Just one other note, if you watch the most recent PDE and DOH press release and updated guidance, I am of the opinion they were specifically speaking to several districts that have elementary students not in school right now, saying to them that if you wanted to go, if you're substantial and you wanted to, you could start providing blended or hybrid. So the guidance, I'll get it out to the board. The link's right up there. It was updated January 7th. But Adam and Beth, I think I cut you off if you wanted to comment.
I did, but I see, Sue, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was just going to read a statement that I saw today from PSEA press release. Is that what you're referring to, Mike, or you're looking?
No, I was talking about Department of Education and the Department of Health.
So just PSEA put out a statement today. For months, PSEA has been encouraging the Wolf administration to make certain that all schools are complying with the current guidance. And we will continue to speak up until we are all certain that every school district is complying with health and safety guidelines without exception. But then they said, as COVID-19 cases increase to near record levels in Pennsylvania and as more contagious strain of the virus has been identified here, this is no time to encourage schools to bring more students and staff in contact with one another in areas with high rates of community spread. Now, obviously, this is PSEA, but I think that to ignore not to ignore, but I think that we need to do everything possible right now to keep our staff and of course all of our students safe. I think Rosemary made a valid point that we just don't know what this new contagion is going to do in terms of spread. And I think that, you know, we've been very proactive, keeping everybody safe. And I think that unfortunately, because I'd love to see everybody in the building, that we need to stay the course until things settle down, and hopefully it's sooner rather than later. The other point I wanted to make was to just ask Karen if you wouldn't mind. Some of the emails we got talked about the need for special ed students to be in the buildings, and I would appreciate, Karen, if you could give an update on what the plan has been and what's been in place for our special ed students.
Sure. The students, our special ed students who have the most complex needs, 5 days a week since September, since after the summer. So we continue that. Right now at the K-5 level, we have, I believe it's 40 students who are in 5 days a week. The secondary students who have complex needs are in 4 days a week and spend the 5th day with asynchronous learning. And oftentimes during that 5th day get a lot of their therapies, which are delivered virtually. So our students have been in, continue to be in. All students who have IEPs other than those with just articulation are given the opportunity to be in 4 days a week. So in other words, taking 2 of the hybrid, Monday through Thursday. So we have been addressing that, and I have to say it's been very successful. Although I don't know that we could do this if we had full student body in. So that's kind of where we are.
I have a question. Jen Sexton, you said, did you say that you feel like we're doing better as a district compared to other districts because of how strict we're being?
I don't know if I said that. I didn't mean more than other districts. I was kind of comparing us to what I'm seeing in our community as working at the urgent care setting, that I see how rampant it is, and people coming in, you know, just needing clearance after travel and finding out indeed they're positive. So, you know, there are people walking around not knowing. So I think it's huge that we keep our efforts going. Like I said,
if we brought kids in and lost that 6 feet, would things would go downhill?
It's hard to predict. Gosh, I wish we had a crystal ball. It would make life so easy. But I think at this point, when we're seeing numbers going up and we're seeing these variants come about that they're saying are so much more virulent and contagious, that it would almost be very foolish, in my humble opinion, to do anything less than what we're doing now to prevent.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, you know, Karen was talking about how, you know, giving the kudos to the nurses for making us all feel so safe. And we've talked about that. And I think the district has done a phenomenal job. Although I hear Rosemary talking about the new strand, I'm not worried about the new strand any more than I'm worried about the current strand, because we're doing what we need to do. You know, if you talk about the difference of the 6 feet, then yeah, that changes things. But there's so many studies that say it is better for our students to be in the building. And I will not stop fighting for the students. I feel for the teachers, I get it. But our students need to be in the building 5 days. And I think we're doing a disservice if we don't provide a survey, which we talked about sending out a couple weeks ago, Mike. We were going to send it out after the new year. So we're a little late here, and I'm very frustrated by that. I'm also frustrated that we haven't gotten a lot of information pushed to us. So I just feel like we're trying to make decisions really quickly.
I take exception to that, Kathy. I think I've provided a lot of information, and I think I also take exception to the fact that you say you're fighting for the students. Well, so is the administration and the teaching
I'm
staff.
not saying nobody is. I'm not.
You're implying that we're not by what you're saying, in my opinion.
Okay, and I apologize if that comes across that way. I just wanted to make it certain that as much as I care about the teachers, and I understand we're worried about our teachers, to me, my priority personally is more so the kids than the staff. So for me, the staff is going to be okay. The vaccinations will come. They're doing a great job. They can stay behind there wherever they need to be. I can't stop fighting for it. So I get I'm on the lone one on the island. I will stop talking. But I really believe that our survey should be asking people what they would prefer, and then we could make those decisions having actual numbers, knowing what people's, because I think we have a lot more fully remote than we think. So
I think everybody on the board and in the administration is I believe committed to the safety of our students and our teachers and our staff, and I don't want that to get lost in any of that. And we are very fortunate to have an administration that has been working nights and weekends and vacations given up to make sure that we are able to deliver the education that we're delivering to our kids. And we saw the data in the curriculum committee earlier this weekend without making significant compromises in safety. I think Dr. Christian's plan about the next 2 months between February and April, where presuming that people have access to vaccine, we're going to have so much more information, and people will have again an opportunity to ask for what they want. And we may be able to offer significantly more time in school when April rolls around. So nobody would have asked for this year. Everybody would ideally like for their kids to be in school full time. I don't think anybody would choose this. But given that we know that we'll have an awful lot more data, and there is some very hopeful indications that it will be much safer for more people to be in schools, can we essentially stay the course, follow the administration's plan, and then come April, we're going to have a lot more data to make really well-informed decisions about what we can do for the end of the year, what we can provide, especially for our younger kids, especially for our graduating students, to give them, you know, maybe a capstone to their senior year that is more school-based. But I think we have to stay the course and follow the plan that keeps people as safe as possible while delivering as much education. And I think the administration's done a wonderful job of that. And so I don't want that to get lost in this conversation. And I don't want anybody to, you know, everybody wants their kids to be in school full time. My kids want to be in the kids want to be in full time, but safety is trumping that. In this case, until we have more vaccines administered and more information about the health of our community.
I just want to make a few quick points, because I agree with what Eunice said, and I think also we'll have more data about this new variant, which I think in, you know, at least in the UK and potentially in Ireland, has really spread very, very quickly, including among younger kids. And that's very concerning. And we know it's here. And so I think it would be good to get some more data to see just, the extent to which it is spreading in the community. But just a few quick points. One, we have had kids in school since October, doing it safely in the hybrid model. So I don't think it's fair to suggest that, or to compare us to districts that have not had kids back in school at all. I mean, the administration and the teachers have worked incredibly hard to have our kids back. We'd love our kids, I'm sure everybody would, to be back more. But we have had kids in school. Second, I've heard from teachers and other parents that, the numbers, especially at the high school, have been lower in terms of in-person attendance. And you sort of wonder why that is. And, are people sort of voting with their feet? I don't really know why that is. And I guess we'll find out in the survey if more people choose full remote than did earlier. But I think, it's a good opportunity to find out where people stand. And it seems like as much as we're hearing from people that want their kids in 5 days a week, we're also not seeing, as much of an attendance, at the high school that would indicate that it's everybody in our community feels that way. So I guess, we'll sort of see what people choose. The third point I would just make is just to encourage people to answer the form as honestly as possible. If you're not planning to have your child come and want to do full remote, then answer it that way. Because, we have to make decisions based on the responses we get. And if you say hybrid and then your child just doesn't come to school, or you keep them home, we can't, we still have to assume that they can come in, right? So we can't maybe, plan for maybe more extra days, and we won't have that flexibility if people don't answer the answer honestly. And the fourth thing I'll just say is, I don't think extra days, I don't think it's necessarily like a switch you can just flip. I think our teachers and our administrators have, worked really hard to set up the hybrid model. And I think, for the sake of our teachers, I think some more continuing with the model, not switching it again, makes sense. But I think to the extent we're talking about looking at offering more days in April and May, there's going to have to be planning that goes into that, because it's very possible there will still be a large number of students who are fully remote, and we'll have to plan to still equitably teach them. And so I think I think Dr. Christian didn't rule that out, the possibility of having more days this year. And I think, my expectation would be, it sounds, and that there will be planning towards that goal, if the numbers and safety measures allow it to happen. So this is a temporary situation. And I mean, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but I think it makes the most sense to continue what we're doing and get through it as safely as possible. And then if, April rolls around, we're able to bring kids back in person more, that would be great, because it would probably mean the vaccinations have happened and the numbers have gone down and the mitigation measures are working.
Anybody else?
And just to piggyback off of what Adam and Eunice and what Kathy has said, I think, we are all on the same page that we want our kids to be in school as much as possible. As a teacher, I know kids learn best in school. And I've heard from so many of our teachers that it would be so much easier for them if all our kids were in school. So it's not, pushing. We all want the same thing here. It's just, how can we do it safely, and how can we keep our kids and our teachers? And that is important. We don't want, we want our kids safe. We want their families safe. We want, a kid coming home and their parents to be safe. And I think the measures we have in place have shown that what we're doing, we are doing a great job of keeping everyone safe. We haven't had in-school transmission, and that's because the protocols and procedures that are in place are working. And I just feel that to lessen that 6 feet, go against some of the science that we've been given at this given moment is just not a risk that I'm ready to take. But I think, like everyone said, come April, the data is going to be different. The vaccine is going to be, rolled out. And where we are right now, we've learned so much from September and even October. I mean, in October, if our numbers were where they are right now in the community, we would be fully virtual. But we've learned how to make this work. And I think we've done a lot of positives and we've done a lot of really, really good things. And I don't want our community to think that we do not want our children in school, because that's absolutely what we want. We know that's how they learn. But we also want everybody to be safe. So please, I hope, our community members that have emailed, I hope you know that we do take this very seriously. And all the emails we got said, you guys have done a great job with hybrid and keeping our children safe. And, I think that's what we just want to be able to continue to do at this point.
Dr. Christian and Mrs. Grigaitis, I assume we can expect that during this time of staying hybrid, virtual, if that's the way we're going here, that you will be working on different possibilities and different alignments of how we can get people back, be it seniors, be it kindergarten, different possibilities for getting back if we can't get everyone back at once.
We certainly will. We'll look at a variety. I think it's important to chunk out the rest of the remainder of the year and not ask for a full semester commitment. I think the one constant in this pandemic is that nothing's been consistent. And so, not to be too repetitive, we want kids in person. We've said that from the get-go, but we'll look at a variety of options. I just think at this time, staying the course is the prudent thing to do, as frustrating as that may be to hear for some folks.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back and listen to how I said what I said. I hope I wasn't implying that any of us didn't want our kids in school. I was just saying how that was my priority was the kids as opposed to all things. So I apologize if it came across that any of us didn't believe in the value of the students being in school. And just the last thing that I want to say is, we're talking about doing things as safely as possible, and that's great. And we talk about looking at data, and that's great. Our data shows that we have not had any transmissions in school, that school is a safer place for our students to be. It is safer for them to be at school than in a pod at their neighbor's house or outside playing now that it's cold, going inside people's houses. So with all due respect for all of the safety is our top concern, I actually believe they're safer in the building. It's hard, you know what I mean? It's a hard situation, and I appreciate the conversation. And I know that, we will continue to move forward and make the best decisions as we can. And I know everybody's heart is in the right spot, frustrated by some things, and that's okay. So I guess the survey, do we have to talk about how you're going to word the survey, or is everybody good with Dr. Christian just sending us a draft of it before he sends it out?
But wait, what survey, Kathy? Aren't we just sending out if the kids want to come back to school and their choice that it's either they're coming back
I don't know.
from February 1st to April 2nd as either hybrid or virtual?
Yeah, but we talked about wording, and we talked about Chris said something about with the 5 days, or I don't remember. It's all went into a circle, so I don't know what it is.
I thought we just said that.
Sent the board one draft already. I'll send another one this evening for the questionnaire that we'd like to send.
Okay.
I'll send it as soon as the meeting's over.
Okay.
And Dr. Christian, just to clarify for everyone, I mean, this wasn't just something like you drafted. I mean, you talked to the principals, the administrative team, before, putting it together, while putting it together?
Yes, we have. We spent, it's not very long, but I can tell you that's been through many iterations and a lot of discussion, looking at a variety of models, looking what other districts are doing, a lot of discussion. Also met with doctors from CHOP. I'm meeting with a group of physicians on Wednesday evening as well, who are residents in our community, to talk about the most recent spread. They've been providing some guidance to us from a local perspective and what they're seeing in their hospitals. So there's been a lot of input from the administrative team on this. And looking, the principals looking at their physical buildings and looking at what our percentages are and what we can do with that key measure, that key mitigation effort of 6 feet distancing.
Yeah, and I know we actually, I forgot, Dr. Christian, I asked you for these numbers. We've had a lot of people saying, I can speak from my daughter's actual experience, is that there's so many times where they go into school and there's only 4 or 5 kids in school. And so if that Tuesday, Thursday cohort, only 4 of those kids are going into school, and of the Monday, Wednesday cohort, if only 5 kids are going to school, could they just go all 4 days? Or just looking at what those numbers would be if they added them together. I don't know if that would be useful information moving forward as well.
Yeah, I wish it was as simple as that. Because of the high school schedule, with children changing classes, and there's a difference between the enrollment versus the actual attendance.
Right.
And I did send you that information about if everybody attended that's enrolled, what the percentages would be, and how difficult it would be to maintain 6 foot distancing.
Okay, but there is something to that, right? So I know that there's been a drop off in the high school. I think some of that, quite frankly, is kids are just burned out. And quite frankly, the analogy I use is they're going from seeing color to seeing gray. And the parents are going like, yeah, you don't have to go, no one's there. And so when we send out the survey, if you're going to go, then you need to go, because we're saving these spots. And if a kid that's going Monday, Wednesday that would love to go 4 days, I know the Fridays we do something different. So I'm not even saying 5 days, I'm saying 4 days right now. If I'm going Monday, Wednesday, and God, I would love to go Tuesday, Thursday, and the kids that are like, I just give up, uncle, can't do this anymore. I'm going to stay home. I'm doing virtual. Maybe I'll go Tuesday, but I'm not going there. That's happening a lot. And I'm sure the teachers have much more of a handle on that. And so I do think there is validity to why can't, and I understand it, why can't my kid go 4 days a week when they're going to class and there's 2 kids there, and we've seen that drop off. So how do we ensure that when folks say, yeah, I'm going Monday, Wednesday, I'm going Tuesday, Thursday, that they're going, how many absences do we allow before we say you're all virtual and we're going to open that spot? I know that, I understand all the issues with that, but there is validity to that. And I do think that that's what parents are reacting to is my kid's going to class. There's 2 people there.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, Beth. I think Chris and Adam were saying that too. That's what's the threshold then to say, listen, you're not coming in, you're all virtual now.
Yeah, like I want
how do you distribute that equitably among one school, let alone 7 schools?
Well, and at least at the high school or the middle, if you said you're coming in, then you're coming in. And if you're out 3 days, you're virtual, because we're going to open that spot to a child. Chris talked about it last week. Like, let's start with the kids that are really struggling with the low performing kids that would really do much better with in person, start to trickle them in if there is room.
I think the other thing we have to consider, and I'm sure the administration is considering it when you look at the attendance, is how many of the kids who are not coming in, who are signed up for hybrid, are staying home because they or a family member was exposed. So I can't imagine that the numbers are going to stay consistent. I mean.
Yeah, but Sue, there are kids, I'm just talking at the high school. There are kids that are signed up for hybrid, and I'm telling you, they have given up.
Yeah.
They're just
Oh,
like,
I have
it's
no
not
doubt.
like it's given. We are losing these kids. And I get it. And I'm not fighting for 5 days. I'm just saying, if you sign up to come in on Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, send your kid.
Yeah, no, I
Don't-
agree.
Well, I feel like going on Monday, but on Wednesday, I don't want to go. Like, you have to go because
Yeah.
you're taking a spot. And if you're not going to go, maybe we could open it up to kids that are really struggling and they could get in 4 days a week.
Well, and I think your point is following up what Adam said, is when you make your choice, when you get the email, don't bogart it, don't pick hybrid just so you have the option.
But what are we going to do on the back end to make sure that they're not bogarting it, that they're in, or we're going to make them go virtual?
Well, you could say, right, if you've committed to virtual or if you've committed to hybrid, we expect you to be here. If you are not physically here in person, and you're too sick to go to school to attend class at all, then you're taking a sick day. If you're able to go to school, but there's some exposure reason, then that can also be reported to the school.
Not a bad point.
And hold people to that commitment. I think it's also important, we're asking people to commit to a 2-month period. Relatively speaking, that's not that many school days because it also includes spring break. It's 7 weeks of class, maybe. So we're asking you to commit for 7 weeks to whatever it is that you're committing to, unless there's some illness reason, and then we can have mechanisms for doing that. And see where that takes us. My only concern is having the administration spend lots of time moving people in and out and in and out, because we're the administrative burden on our principals and administrators is already exponentially greater this year than in any other year.
Wouldn't it only really affect the transportation? Because wouldn't students stay in the same class whether they were in the building or not?
You would, but it's a tracking issue, right? It's a tracking issue to say, well, where's this kid supposed to be? Are they?
I'm saying, couldn't we have like some sort of disclaimer, or not a disclaimer, but something in there that if you miss more than, I don't know, say 2 weeks, and it's not because you're sick
or illness,
make you virtual.
I mean, that makes sense. I think it's just, in tempering expectations. I don't know how many, because I think people may hear that and think, oh, well, there's definitely going to be spots opening up. And why haven't I been moved into that? So I think it's just, my point is that it all creates an additional level of management work for the administration.
I just want parents to really take it seriously. So
I agree. We're going to ask folks to respond by the 17th, and we'll look at what the data says, particularly at those buildings where the actual attendance has been dropped. And I'll work with Jason and Bob specifically. And I think it's prudent to acknowledge the fact too that for 1 or 2 absences, we do ask families if they're exhibiting any symptoms, anything like that, stay home. So it would have to be a repeat.
Yeah, I want them to stay home. Right. I mean, to Jennifer's point, stay home if you're not feeling well and avoid having to stay home for 2 weeks. Right. But
keep in mind too that in the fall, we were asking people to commit for a full semester. So it was a much longer period of time. And so I understand why some people may have said, I want hybrid. Then we also ran into around the holidays where the numbers really started going up significantly. So now we're in this period where the numbers are up significantly. We're talking about asking people about a 2-month period. My hope would be we're going to get fewer people who are going to just sort of select hybrid to have the option, and that people will actually sort of select what they intend their child to do.
Fun stuff. Anybody else have any other thoughts on any of this? We'll move on to the next agenda item. I closed it out. I think it's the food services, please. Thank you, Lori.
Yep. Hi. All right. So thank you Thank you for having me. I wanted to share information about a grant that our department received recently. It's actually one of 4 grants that we had applied for and have been awarded so far this school year. Most of them were used to offset costs associated with COVID, but this one we're particularly excited about because it deals specifically with student wellness. And so it is a farm to school grant that we received through the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture in the amount of $10,500 to procure and serve locally grown foods in our school cafeterias. And this is important for our students because locally grown foods, especially produce, are a lot fresher. You could argue they're more nutritious because they're picked at the peak of ripeness when they're most nutritionally dense. It helps out our local economy by serving local foods, our local farmers, which is very important today, more so than ever. It's safer because when food goes from point A to point B, the less hands it's in touches, the better. It helps, it benefits the environment and a lot of other reasons. So this isn't anything new to us. We've been serving locally grown produce in our cafeterias for quite some time. However, this grant will allow us to increase the variety of things that we offer and expand our offerings and maybe start looking at things like meats and cheeses in addition to serving locally grown produce. And because we like to think of our cafeterias as extensions of the classroom, we will be providing nutrition education materials that correspond with the items that we're serving as well. So next to the items, we'll do this through either signage or meal identifiers that either highlight some bullet points or for the older grades, provide some QR codes so students can scan and learn a little bit more about the local items where they're grown and what nutritional benefits they do offer. I have another update as well, and this is on a partnership that we have with Giant Food Stores now through February 28th, and customers will be invited to round up at the register. Giant will then match any of the donations and provide them to our district to help fight food insecurity for children in our district. Again, an important time because food insecurity is at an all-time high. So once we receive those funds, we will look at either eliminating meal debt that has accumulated for needy students or increasing access to meals, whether it be through expansion of our summer meal program or expansion of our efforts that we're currently doing now. So anything that we can do to help with food insecurity is great during this time period. And at the district level, we're continuing our efforts to help fight food insecurity by continuing with the weekly meal pickups for families every Friday. The staff's been doing a great job with that. It's been getting a little cold. There's been snow on the ground a few weeks ago. RJ graciously gave us some PW winter hats that are helping to keep the staff warm, and they're really appreciative of that. And I know that I said this at our last meeting. I told you that the staff was doing a fantastic job, and I will say it again at this meeting. They continue to do so.
Lori, do we still have a relationship with Whole Foods?
So we used to have a specific relationship with one of the managers over there who's no longer at the store. I'm sure if we reached out to them, we could have, I mean, they've done things here and there for us in the past, but not anything continuously since the previous marketing manager has left.
We don't have the garden anymore, is that right?
No, the garden, we were told by previous administrators that they did not want us to continue it because of the area. They felt like it was unsafe for students driving in and out of that farmland. I guess there was a blind spot, if you recall, when you were coming out of the driveway. So we were told that it probably was not a good idea for safety reasons to continue, especially in that location. So then we did try to, we worked with the middle school when they had the aquaponics system to try to get some of the foods in that way. But that's kind of where we are at this point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Lori, thanks for all you're doing, and to you and your staff. Could you just update us briefly on the Friday meal pickups and how, on average, how many families are taking advantage of those? Because you read in the paper about how food insecurity is becoming a bigger and bigger and bigger issue all across the country. So I just wanted to hear what you're seeing on the ground.
So We've had more people come pick up meals, obviously, when the district was all virtual, but we're still having we probably do close to 300 meals that are picked up weekly. And that's not including, that's just including the meals that are picked up. We also send meals home for hybrid students the days that they're not in school. So we see families taking advantage of that as well. And I think year to date, well, I should say not year to date, since March, since we first started doing the curbside meals, I think we're probably at about 125,000, somewhere around there, meals served. Again, not including the meals that students eat while they're in school, but these are the ones that are sent home for consumption.
That's great. And is it still open to every student in the district, every family?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Lori, I know we've said it before, but please make sure your staff knows how much we appreciate how hard they've worked through this entire pandemic, and this such an important role that they've played, and we really appreciate their efforts and yours as well.
Oh, thank you. I will let them know.
And any other comments or questions about food service? Okay. So next is the Afro-Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics. That's a mouthful.
That is definitely a mouthful. That's a mouthful that I was going to be required to read. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to have this conversation with you. That was some heavy, so this is some good, some smile, something positive we can talk about right now. The AXO program, I had the fortunate pleasure of meeting with the Montgomery County chapter of the NAACP a few weeks ago, and it was a very positive meeting, and we talked about some opportunities for our students, and they shared with me the AXO program. The AXO is in its 42nd year of existence, but it's traditionally been really for the western side of the country and the South. So this year, the Montgomery County chapter has been authorized to bring this program to the East Coast, and they are extending their branches to not only the Montgomery County because it's a new program and because we're kind of virtual, so it kind of provides them an opportunity to reach out a little bit further. So they're going to be they're really in their recruitment phase right now for this program, and what it is a STEM program, or STEM cultural arts competition for students. And what it does is pair students with local volunteers and mentors and leaders that the students decide of an interest for their competition. And they pair them with that leader or that volunteer to help them put on a presentation, and they compete in a competition in April, a local competition. And then they would subsequently go on to a national competition, which at this point is scheduled to be in Charlotte. But as of right now, it will be virtual. So I'm curious to know myself how things will happen in terms of the cultural arts, but I'm sure that they will work out all those things. So what I'm going to do is just briefly share a little bit about I'm just going to share the site, and we're going to provide this to our students. I'm meeting with the student clubs this coming Wednesday to kind of roll this out to our students. It's for high school students, ages 6, I believe it's 14 to 19. And what it is they have their, it's really geared towards African-American students. And so it's a great opportunity for them. Let me share my screen here. And can we all see that screen there? Yes, okay. So again, the Afro-Academic, Cultural, Technological, and Scientific Olympics, a year-long achievement program designed to recruit, stimulate, and encourage high academic cultural achievement among African-American high school students. And so I just wanted to play this little brief clip. I'm not going to play the whole clip, but just to hear some of the, I think we could all enjoy some positive smiles from some students right now. So just play a little bit of the clip of some of the students' responses to participating in the program.
Walking into the large convention center and seeing all the kids from the different chapters around the country.
Everyone coming from everywhere, from across the U.S. to compete and show what they can do, I think is amazing.
This is my first experience and it's been
so far amazing. And I can already feel the competitive spirit, but the uplifting spirit from everyone all at the same time. And it's really influenced my perspective, especially as a young Black woman. We are kings and we are queens.
There's so many big names that have gone through AXO.
They've already set the stepping stones, and now it's just a matter of putting my own stones down as well.
It just feels great to be a part of such a wonderful program. And if I'm supposed to represent like this golden future,
And having that royal legacy sets that golden future for you, because it's only up from here.
and that makes me feel so much more better about my future. I feel more confident in everything I'm doing.
And showing me that I should have confidence in what I do and what I will do and what I'm able to do and what my peers are able to do. This year I was a senior at Auburn High School, and I graduated having been accepted to 5 Ivy League universities, and I'll be attending Harvard University in the fall.
I have a royal legacy and I have a golden future.
I have a royal legacy and a golden future. I have a royal legacy and I have a golden future.
I have a royal legacy and a golden future.
I am AXO.
I am AXO.
I am AXO.
I am AXO.
I am Kalima White, and I am AXO.
And so, I just wanted to share that brief clip of those smiles and those students, and it goes on and does some dance and show what they do, and it's wonderful. So again, the students, what I would like to do is be able to promote this for our students, get our students hopefully involved again in this great program, the culinary arts, the STEM program, entrepreneurship. And the great thing about it is those competitions come with obviously prizes and scholarships. So again, it's a great opportunity for our students to be able to participate in, and I look forward to providing that to them, as well as some other programs that we're going to be gearing, and you'll hear about those more in the future through Amazon and our Amazon's future engineers and Amazon's future leadership programs that will hope to be available to all of our student body. So those are some of the positive things that we're looking to bring to our district and to our students. And again, I just wanted to thank you, and I hopefully that provided a little bit of positivity for something to smile about today. Seeing those students' smiles always makes me smile, at least.
So Gerald, in the program, the students they're going to have a local mentor that they're going to work with, I think you said. And then I assume the intent is that our students will be able to go in, after COVID, clearly in person, to participate in this great competition and, network and meet their peers from all over the country.
Knock on wood, Adam, please don't jinx it.
That's great. and develop career skills, STEM skills, performing skills. That's fantastic.
That is certainly the goal. And like I said, it is planned for right now as a virtual format because it's scheduled to be in Charlotte. But we're going to keep being hopeful. And I know for sure that the local competition, obviously, because it's in April, will be, virtual. So again, they will be paired with a couple of mentors, and if there's some, those that are interested, that have an interest in dance, will be paired with someone that's maybe a professional dancer, and obviously the culinary arts may be paired with professional chefs. And so again, it's a great opportunity for the students, and we just hope to get them involved. And I know it's a little bit, I think that they've been inundated with a lot of trials this year. So it's hopeful that we can get them excited about doing something so creative.
Carol, just a quick question. Do you have any a goal, like how many students you would like to get involved at the first go around here?
I don't. I think that we're going to put it out there. I'm going to promote it. The fortunate thing about this program this year is because it's virtual, there's no limit to the number of students that the program can take. So that's certainly a benefit for us. I'm going to certainly implore all of our students that are, interested in these fields or these programs to certainly get involved. And so I don't have a goal. I would love to see as many as possible join the program, but I want them to, obviously, I certainly understand the challenges that they're facing right now as well.
Okay, well, we hope to have you back with an update.
Absolutely. So yeah, they're in their recruiting phase right now. And so the recruiting phase is scheduled to last through March because they want to still stick to that schedule of having that local competition in April. So they want to really get the students in as early as possible to be able to get them paired up So I'm not going to share, the link is going to be posted on our website, as well as I'll be meeting with the high school team, the high school staff to have it posted on Canvas. But what happened was a application program link, because it has not been offered to the East Coast, the NAACP link was not allowing the student application to go to our local branch. So until they fix that kink, and I just met with them again on Friday and asked them, and I just checked the link and it's still not there. So I will meet with them again and contact them so that we can get this link up so that students can submit their applications.
Mr. James, do you need help finding community mentors, or is that coordinated through the NAACP?
I think it is coordinated through NAACP, but I will certainly reach out to them and ask them. I'm sure they don't turn down volunteers.
I'm just wondering if there are folks, from our alumni networks and our tech school and our teachers who I'm sure would be thrilled to participate.
I will certainly ask and inquire about that and how they could certainly, if that opportunity exists for recruitment of volunteers and what that looks like for them to contact the Montgomery County chapter.
Thank you.
Gerald, when I was looking up information about the program online, now does New York City have this program in a number of its schools? Because I was surprised when you said that it wasn't connected with the East Coast so far.
This year is the first year that it's been opened up to the East Coast. At least that was shared with me, that it was opened up to the East Coast this year, and our Montgomery County chapter is one of the local offices that is going to be able to provide it. So the New York City schools may have already had this up and established, and I just found out the information recently. So it's very well possible, Mrs. Norcutt, that it is in the New York school systems already.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. James.
Absolutely.
And our last one, Board Policy 207. Who wants to do this one? Dr. Christian, Mrs. Burke?
There we go. I brought this forward for a first read. Basically, it's a pretty basic policy, but it's something that we have not had in our policies, and it is something that we should have. Basically, what this is saying or indicating is that we as a school district need to follow all state statutes and laws regarding student confidentiality when a student confides in a school district member. However, it is important to note that there are exceptions to that rule, and the biggest exception that there is, or the most important one, is when a student is expressing that they may cause harm to themselves, or that there is a potential for them to cause harm to others. In that case, this policy allows us to share that information with the student, or in the case of a student having shared information with the teacher, sharing it with the building principal or with the guidance department. So it's a pretty important, although pretty simplistic policy, but it's certainly something that should be on the books.
I had submitted the comment that I really feel that the title of the policy does not reflect what this policy is about, because it really is giving the very specific guidelines when confidentiality must by law be breached. So anybody just looking through titles would have no idea what this policy was about.
Actually, that is not how I read it. I read it as saying that this really is telling us that we are required to follow all state statutes. The student confides in us. And actually, what this is referencing is the school code, section 12.12. And it is called confidential communications because it is about the confidential communications that a student shares with a school employee.
It almost seems like there should be two policies, one about the maintenance of confidentiality, and then maybe a second about when that has to be breached, because it seemed the majority of the information was about when there's a student may be posing harm to self or to someone else, then you must inform, and that in the district, it seems like the teacher would inform an administrator, and it's the administrator who then reaches out to law enforcement, parents, whoever else, parents, guardians, whoever else needs to be informed.
I have an email into PSBA to see if there's, to talk about the title of it.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at it from a different perspective. So, you know, the guidelines does tell us when we are permitted to not, or to share something, but I think the three legislative pieces do tell us when we can't divulge any information, like if we get subpoenaed, we can't share the information. So, you know, but I guess it's important if, you know, if you hear otherwise from PSBA, Dr. Christian, that would be helpful.
I will. Linda and I will follow up in the morning.
Okay.
Any other comments about that guy? All right, that's everything on the agenda. Is there any public comment?
We do have a few hands raised. Drew?
Yep. Please state your full name, place of residency before commenting.
Hi, my name is Claudia Ng, and I'm in Plymouth Meeting. I kind of want to redirect back to the vaccination discussion we had. Dr. Christian, you mentioned that the teachers are targeted to receive the vaccine by the end of January. How will that impact our current hybrid model? Meaning, will we consider opening 5 days at that point and then begin, data gathering? How many teachers have been vaccinated? How many families want 5 days? How many families want full virtual? How many families prefer hybrid, and so on?
The county has informed us that they hope to start Group 1B by the end of January, and that they believe that the Group 1B, which includes educators, firefighters, police, grocery store employees, people over the age of 75, is likely in excess of 120 to 130,000 people. That's an estimate that they gave us. They've not told us if educators are at the front of 1B, in the middle of 1B, or at the end. We've had this, the only thing we've done as a district, we've submitted at the county's request the total number of employees that we have, and we have specified those who have direct contact with children. I believe because you need 2 doses, that it would take likely a month or 2 to get everybody in the county fully vaccinated, but they haven't given us specifics to say, like, are we taking districts alphabetically, or we're still waiting for that information. And they kept stressing to us that they are waiting for the number of doses that they need to administer as many as they can per day.
Okay, and then, so I understand that. But then when, we are at a point where we know when we're getting their teachers are getting them and they do have it, is that a conversation we can have about
yes,
opening
absolutely.
up 5 days? I didn't know if that was.
Yes, I'm sorry. I forgot to answer part of your question.
No worries. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I believe I have Diane on the screen. Is Diane unmuted, Drew? I don't have a last name. Drew?
Yes, she is unmuted.
Diane, could you state your name and residence? I believe that'll conclude public comment, Mrs. Peduzzi.
Any other board comment? Awesome. Meeting adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
I want to remind everyone that we're having an executive session with a different link So if everybody can sign off and sign back on as quickly as possible so we can be done with this evening. Thank you.